So the Old Testament reading is taken from the book of Esther, and chapter 4, commencing at verse 6. So Hatak went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened to him, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation, which had been published in Susa, to show to Esther and explain it to her. And he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. Hatak went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, "All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they may be put to death, unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king." Or when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai: "Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Susa, and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. This is the word of the Lord.
So the New Testament reading is taken from Mark chapter 9, verses 14 to 29. When they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and the teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. "What are you arguing with them about?" he asked. A man in the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." "You unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. When the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often thrown him into the fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for one who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe, help me overcome my unbelief." When Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene, he rebuked the impure spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit," he said, "I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "This kind can only come out only by prayer and fasting." This is the word of the Lord.
Hey, Will, let's welcome up Will, our vicar, who is going to bring the word of the Lord to us today. So, Lord, I thank you for Will. Thank you for all the preparation work. And I've gone, oh no, back on again. Sorry to interrupt my prayer there. Lord, thank you for Will. And I just pray that you will just anoint him and fill him with your Holy Spirit now. And I pray, Lord, that your word this morning will encourage us and help us this morning. In Jesus' name I ask. Amen. All my stuff. My paraphernalia. I can leave you a little chewed pig if you want.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So we're continuing in our series on prayer and fasting, and this morning we've had two of the absolute most important, most inspiring, most significant passages about fasting in the whole Bible and the way God uses fasting. Two amazing stories. The story of Esther, where through that 3-day prayer and fast, God delivers the whole of Israel out of threat of annihilation, threat of being completely destroyed. And then the New Testament reading in the Gospel, where Jesus delivers a young boy from demonic oppression, and he says, this kind of demon can only come out by prayer and fasting. Prayer and fasting. When people pray and fast, throughout the Bible, every reference in the whole Bible to prayer and fasting, God does amazing things. Some of the most extraordinary miracles, interventions by God, breakthroughs, deliverance, powerful healings, some of the most amazing corporate moments in the whole of Israel's history in the Old Testament where God intervenes and delivers his people and rescues them are accompanied by prayer and fasting. Every time fasting's mentioned, something amazing happens. So before we get going, I've done a little one-page leaflet. I say one page, it's double-sided and very small font, but it is just one page. A few tips on fasting. So that's just a few things I've put together that I've found helpful over the years because there's a practical side to fasting. How do you actually make fasting and praying work in the ordinary run of life with all the other commitments we've got? So I've just put a few tips together there. There's a stack of those on the little table by the door. If that's of interest, please pick one of those up on the way out. A few tips on prayer and fasting that I've found helpful over the years, gleaned from experience and different books, different bits of the Bible. So today, as part of this little series on prayer and fasting, I'm calling it Recommitment Sunday. This is a call this morning for everyone here at St. Andrew's to recommit to prayer. And fasting is just really an aid to prayer, helps us to take prayer seriously, to go deeper in prayer, to be more committed in prayer, more faithful in prayer. Prayer is absolutely essential for the life of every church. Well, I say the life of every church. Depends what kind of church you want to be. Do we want to be a church which is about God? Do we? Yes, thank you. Or do we want to be a church that's about us? You know, there are lots of churches, lovely churches, that are essentially about a group of people getting together, helping each other, being nice to each other, serving their community, you know, a human institution. Human institutions are good. Actually, God The Bible says every human institution is given by God, and we need to organize ourselves, and we need to have good human institutions. There's nothing wrong with a human institution, but the church is not a human institution. The church is the body of Christ. We embody the presence of Jesus in this world. The church is the house of the Lord, the house of God where God dwells by his Spirit. The church is the gathering of people that welcome, usher in, enable even God's power and presence in this world as he builds his kingdom through us. Now, do we want to be a church about God moving amongst us, doing stuff, intervening, answering prayer, breaking into people's lives, changing the world? Or do we want to be a human institution that just looks after things in a human way? So let me ask the question in a different way. Do we want to be a church based on prayer? Do we want to be a prayerful church? Or do we want to be a church based on, admin and organization? Admin and organization is important. Practical human things are important. But we want to be a church that is powered by prayer, inspired by prayer, led by the Spirit in prayer. That's what this Thursday evening face-to-face is about. It's about just creating some space, coming together saying, God, we're here for you. We're seeking your face. That's what that song we just sung is about. Be still and know that I'm God. God gave us this verse, Exodus 14:14, for this season. The Lord will fight for you. All you need is to be still. Be still. Can we learn to be still before God, in the presence of God? That is prayer. Be still intentionally before God, making space for him, that he might fight for us, that he might come in power, that he might work through us, changing our lives, changing our families, changing our community, changing our nation. God, you've got to do it. That's what prayer and fasting is about. It's saying, we can't do it. Who are we? But you, Lord, you are able to do amazing things in us and through us as we trust you, as we come to you. Just like Queen Esther. What an extraordinary hero. Heroine, if you like, she is in the history of Israel, in the whole Bible. Just, you might think, well, Esther, it's a pretty minor book in the Bible. We don't hear about it very often. Not even sure exactly what happens. When was the last time we read the book of Esther? It's not very well known. You think, mate, is this really a very important story? This is arguably the most important story in the whole Old Testament. Let me tell you why. Because this is the only time in the whole of the history of Israel that the nation of Israel, God's people, are threatened with complete annihilation. If this edict from the king of Persia, where they were in slavery, held as captives by this nation of God's people, if this edict to annihilate, destroy, wipe out, execute every member of the Jewish nation, every member of the people of Israel, if this had gone ahead, that would have been it. End of story. God's people gone. No more Bible. The whole story of the history of Israel and ultimately the coming of the Messiah out of the nation of Israel. They've been wiped out. In this moment, they were threatened with destruction. And Mordecai, what a hero, he goes to Esther, the queen, and says, you've got to do something about this. You can speak to the king. Of course, it's a totally different cultural context. The king of this, in the ancient world, in this context, the king of Persia was all-powerful, had absolute power over life and death. If anyone displeased the king, they were executed. I don't know how many wives he would have had, maybe hundreds. And if one of them came into his presence, said, I want to tell you something, displeased the king, without an invitation, without an audience, immediately put to death. And Mordecai says, you've got to go and speak to the king. She said, I can't speak to the king. He hasn't even spoken to me for 30 days. I haven't been invited into his presence. I've got no power. I've got no agency whatsoever with the king. And Mordecai says, look, you have to speak to the king. Is it that you have been brought to your royal position for such a time as this? What a great word. There's a word for every one of us. God has placed each one of us in our context, in our family, in our workplace, in our neighborhood, in the context of our friends and our community for such a time as this. He's saying there's things that only you can do. There's things where in your life where God has placed you and he wants to use you, and you're the only one. For such a time as this, God has a purpose and a plan for you to use you this week, this occasion, with these people. No one else, none other of God's people there available. God wants to use you for such a time as this. And for Esther, it was a very, very dramatic moment. For such a time as this, you've got to go into the king's presence. You've got to plead for your life, the life of your family, and the life of God's people. And of course, if you read the rest of the story, she does it. And God makes a way. And he speaks to the king. And he delivers God's people from this imminent, total destruction, this threat that's over them. But how does Queen Esther do it? When she's faced with that challenge, she realizes, I can't do this on my own strength. I need a miracle. We need a huge miracle to deliver God's people. I need a miracle just to be able to speak to the king. So what did she do? Did she just say, okay, I'll give it a go? No. She humbles herself. She and her attendants, the people around her, they prepare. They fast and pray for 3 days. And she calls the whole of God's people to fast and pray for 3 days with her as a corporate act of commitment, of prayer, of crying out to God. And God's power is released through their faithfulness, their prayer and their fasting, their devotion to God. It happens again and again in the Bible. When people get serious about prayer, when they agree together to fast and seek God, God turns up and does amazing things. And he delivers his people miraculously from this threat. So then we move to the New Testament story. Not the deliverance of a nation from political oppression, but the deliverance of one child from demonic oppression. And Jesus delivers the boy, but it's such a fascinating story. It's got so much in it. The father brings the boy to Jesus, and what does he say? He says, "Teacher." Jesus says, "How long has he been like this?" All his life. This thing has thrown him into the fire, thrown him into the water, threatened his life. There's nothing we can do. This poor child's been suffering all his life. He says, "If there's anything you can do to help, please have mercy on us." Jesus says, "If there's anything I can do." If there's anything I can do. Jesus is the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. He's the longed for, promised Messiah. He's got all power over this demonic oppression. If there's anything I can do. But he doesn't say to the man, "Do you know who you're talking to? You know, I can do what I want. I can destroy demons, no problem. Bring him here." No, he challenges the father. He says, "If there's anything I can do." He said, "Don't you know, everything is possible for the one who believes." Everything is possible for the one who believes. He challenges the father about his faith. Do you believe that Jesus is able to deliver? Do you believe that Jesus is able to answer our prayers? Do we believe, really believe, that God can break in, transform our lives, transform the people around us, transform our situation? That I'm calling this Sunday Recommitment Sunday, because I'm calling the church to recommit to serious prayer. Believing, faithful, committed, tenacious, never giving up prayer. How many of us have been, some of us might have been praying for certain things, certain people, in ourselves maybe, or in our family, our immediate loved ones, our friends. Maybe some have been praying for situations. Maybe some have been praying for the nation, the church, for breakthrough, for revival, for renewal. How many of us have been praying for years? And perhaps you're sitting here today feeling like, I'm just so disappointed. I prayed and prayed and prayed. I just haven't seen the answer to prayer. I haven't seen a change. I haven't seen a breakthrough. I've just had disappointment and silence and where is God? You know, sometimes it can feel like that. Persevering in prayer can be hard. The challenge today from Jesus is, will we recommit? Will we remember that the Jesus who delivered that boy, the Jesus who has all power and authority, the Jesus who's reigning over our lives, reigning over this church, reigning over the nations, is the same Jesus yesterday, today, and forever. Yes, sometimes, as the old revivalists used to say, sometimes the Lord tarries. Sometimes the Lord tarries. We don't see the answers to prayer straight away. And what does Jesus say when the disciples come to him and say, why couldn't we deliver this child? Why couldn't we drive this demon out? And I think this is the question that we all ask. You know, maybe we're not driving out demons every day of the week, but you know, when we come to the Lord, why can't we see answers to prayer more often? Why can't we see your power at work, Lord? Why can't we see deliverance and breakthroughs and answers? Why is there so much resistance, so much unbelief? Why do people just seem so reluctant, so resistant to come to you, to know you, Lord? Why aren't we seeing more? What does Jesus say? This kind only come out by prayer and fasting. Prayer and fasting. Actually, there's a little textual issue in this text. If you read your New Testament, you'll see probably what's printed in the NIV, the New International Version on the shelf there. It just says, this kind only come out by prayer. But then in the footnote it says, some manuscripts, and some of the most ancient manuscripts, have prayer and fasting. And we haven't got time to go into all the history and about the text, but clearly the early church understood, and clearly what Jesus was talking about was not just, oh yeah, this kind come out when you pray, you know, just say a little prayer. No, Jesus is saying this kind come out with persistent, persevering, faithful, committed prayer. The devotion, setting ourselves aside, not giving up, persevering in prayer will bring deliverance, will bring breakthrough, will bring answers to prayer, will bring results as God's kingdom breaks in more and more. Continual, ongoing, persistent prayer. And that kind of prayer invariably is accompanied by fasting. If we're serious about prayer, if we're saying, I really believe God wants to break in through prayer in our lives and in our church in a fresh way, it is going to be accompanied by fasting. I mean, sometimes I just think fasting is just saying to myself and saying to God, I really mean this prayer. This is not just a quick arrow prayer, you know, just a thought that popped into my head. This is something I've thought about. I've written down. I am wanting, Lord, seriously to see this prayer answered. Hear me. I mean it. And I'm willing to miss a meal or go without food for a day, or, you know, for whatever condition you might have, you think, I can't actually miss meals and food. I mean, some of us are in that situation. Well, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to sacrifice something else. I'm going to show God I'm serious through prayer and fasting. We're going to see a breakthrough. We read the Bible again and again and again. When people pray and fast, especially corporately, amazing things happen. Amazing things happen. So that's the challenge today. You know, will we recommit to persistent, faithful, committed, diligent, tenacious, never say die prayer. God, I'm going to keep praying. I'm going to keep praying for this till I see the answer, or till you come back, Jesus, or the lights go out. But I'm still going to be praying. I'm going to keep praying and persisting. And I'm not going to say, well, if you don't do it next week, then what's the point? Needn't have bothered. Obviously doesn't work. No, Jesus says this kind only come out by prayer and fasting. Who's in? Who's going to pray and fast until we see God move? Are we going to be that church that's about God and what he does and the stories, the testimonies, the breakthroughs that God has done in our lives and through us in the lives of others? Or are we just going to be a nice group of people who do things together and, organize things well? I know what church I want to be part of. I want to be a God church. And that is only going to happen with prayer and fasting. So it's just a challenge. It's a call to say, will we pray and fast? And 2 stories. We pray and fast for individuals that we're longing to see delivered and released and healed and set free and saved. And will we pray and fast for the nation, for the church? I've said it before in these recent weeks. We are part of a church that is in crisis. We have got a safeguarding disaster in the Church of England that has been highlighted in recent months. We have neglected and failed our children and our vulnerable people in this church. Is it not time to pray and fast and repent and call out to God to revive us and renew us? 75 years ago in the 1950s, 50% of the nation's children were in Sunday school in a Church of England church on a Sunday morning. Today, fewer than 2% of our children are in church. Oh God, what have we done? Give us our children back. How we failed to be your light and your presence in this nation. The threat of materialism, commercialism, secularism, the threat to our nation is not, the king of Babylon is going to execute us. But believe me, God's people are in danger of annihilation as we lose generation after generation. Is it not time to fast and pray and call out to the Lord for deliverance, for the church to forgive us and remake us so we might be a shining light, a renewed and revived church for this nation? So that's the call today. We commit to pray, persevere in prayer for individuals and for our church and for our nation. Let's just offer a simple response of standing where we are if we'd like to recommit to prayer today. Perhaps the musicians will come, be ready. We're going to sing Faithful One. We're going to sing Faithful One. We're going to sing about God's faithfulness because God is faithful. We go up and down. We fail to keep our promises, but God doesn't. So as we recommit ourselves, and I just want to say, if there's a particular person or prayer that you've been praying for years, maybe you've dropped off, given up, and you want to recommit to keep praying. Maybe it's a family member, or maybe it's some other issue in your own life that you want to see freedom for. You want to keep praying. You want to recommit today. Then I think that's a great thing to get some prayer ministry after the service. The prayer team will be there. They would count it such a privilege just to stand with you and pray once again for your need this morning. But Lord, we offer you ourselves. We ask you will give us your Holy Spirit. We cannot do this in our own strength. We need help, overcome our unbelief, Lord. Give us fresh faith and fresh fire, and help us to be faithful in prayer to be persistent and not to give up. Come, Holy Spirit, lead us once again, we pray.